Happy to see you guys. So I am Sarah Ellis with Beadalon, and I have a really fun project for you guys today. This is kind of the adult version of a friendship bracelet that we all probably did back when we were teenagers. If you were ever into macrame and knotting and those types of projects, that is very much what this is going to be. But this is the updated version of this. And instead of using the traditional stringing materials that you normally find in these types of bracelets, we're actually going to be doing the knotting with some 49 strand bead stringing wire, which just kind of takes the entire look to a very kind of chic, elegant kind of place, which is really an interesting look for a friendship style knotted bracelet. So I'm hoping that you guys are really going to love this one. It really turns out beautifully. It's a pretty straightforward project. So you, as soon as you become familiar with the knotting part of it, you're not going to have any problems with this at all. So let's talk a little bit about what we're going to be using. We're going to be using the Beadalon tying station. This is one of my very favorite Beadalon tools. This is definitely, in my opinion, a must-have in your jewelry making, kit, if you will. Something that I use quite frequently for a lot of different things. I'm just going to show you one of many of the ways you can use this. And then we're going to be using some beads and some other things. I'm going to show you those up close down on the mat. So let's go ahead, guys, and get started with today's project. All right. So let me give you just kind of a little breakdown of the tying station before we get into what some of the other materials are. Just for those of you who maybe have never seen the tying station before, you can grab these over at Michael's, and super, super handy to have. So along this side, you're going to notice that it has a ruler, and the ruler is probably my favorite part of this, not just because it's a ruler and I can keep up with the measurements, but it's placed specifically where your project is going to start. And that means you don't have to do any extra math to add or subtract, depending on your clasp and things like that. So in my mind, that makes it just pretty brilliant. I'm not much of a numbers person. So if I have to add and subtract things, I tend to kind of to stay away from that. I like to have it, kind of all the guesswork done for me. There are two on both ends. The entire thing is made out of acrylic, but on both ends you have a screw with a wing nut, and you also have a washer and an acrylic plate. To attach your materials to this, you just unscrew, and then you're going to lay your materials down and then place this over the top of it and tighten it down. What that's going to do is it's going to allow you to have free hands to work. So you don't have to pin this to anything. You don't have to use a clipboard, and you can secure the bottom as well, which you can't normally do with a clipboard. But the cool part about this is that even if you are working on something very, very short, right? If you're not doing a bracelet length project, you can adjust this. So you can slide it up, and if your piece is only this long and you need to secure your end, you can make adjustments for that. So makes it really, really handy. Not only that, but you've got this opening here where you can get your fingers kind of underneath there, which you definitely can't do with a clipboard either. So definitely one of my favorite tools that I have. All right, so let's talk about some of the other things. First and foremost are your beads, and I'm using some of the glass beads. For those of you who have been part of my previous classes, you know that I tend to gravitate towards beads that come with more than one strand on a card, just for the reason that if you are selling your jewelry, you like to keep an eye on the, the cost of your materials. And so I find that when I can get a strand of beads from Michael's that, or at least a card that has more than one strand, I love that. And we're only using 10 of these beads for this bracelet. So I have an entire card of beads left over, which means I can make even more of this bracelet, or I can make matching pieces to go with it, or just save these beads for a completely different project, which is awesome. So these are the gray faceted. It says gray black on the back. These are bead landing beads, and there are various sizes. We're going to use the it's a rondelle shape. So it's like a 6 by 8 millimeter. It's not just a standard 8, but you know, that's just because of the shape of the bead, but you could use any of the beads on this if you wanted to. However, you may have to add or subtract beads depending on your size. Okay, so those are the beads that we're going to be using. You're also going to need your bead stringing wire. This is super important because this is what we're actually going to be creating our core and our knots out of. I'm using 49 strand Beadalon bead stringing wire, and I'm using the Bright, which is this really beautiful, it's a kind of a silvery color, but not on the like bright silver side. This is more on the kind of the rhodium or you know, a dark gray color, if you will, and it pairs beautifully with these beads and has just enough shine to it to just really, really be beautiful. You can do this project with 19 strand wire. I do find it very difficult to do this with 7 strand though. So 19 and 49 strand bead stringing wire is going to be your best bet. I just find that when it comes to knotting, it knots better. I'm not going to beat around the bush about it. It does make a prettier knot and there's less struggle with it. Okay, so traditionally you use this to string things with, but we are going to create our actual knots with this. You're going to need a 16-inch piece of this and then a 6-foot piece of that as well. I didn't misspeak. You need 6 feet of this. So 2 pieces, 1 short and 1 really long. Okay. You're also going to need some findings. I'm using the Beadalon findings variety pack. It has all of the things that I need. It's got my jump rings in it. It also has my clasps in it. And then the variety pack that has the crimp covers in it. We're actually going to cover some crimps. I don't always use crimp covers for things, but I feel like it looks really good. It makes this bracelet look nice and, you know, finished, professional looking. You're also going to need some wire guardians, some crimp tubes as well, or you can use crimp beads if you want to. But you're definitely going to need these to get started. Okay. So let's do that. Let's get started. The very first thing that we want to do is we want to attach our 16-inch piece of our bead stringing wire to our tying station. So let me lift you up just a little bit so you can see more of the tool here. Okay. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up the top here. I'm not going to take it all the way off. I'm going to slide my piece of bead stringing wire underneath those 2 acrylic plates. And you can see I've got just a little bit of a tail here. And I need to leave that so that I've got something that this acrylic plate can grip onto. And I'm going to screw this down to tighten that end. Give it the tug test to make sure that it's not going to slip on you. Okay. Now down here on the bottom, before I secure the bottom, I want to go ahead and string my beads on for our bracelet. So I have 10 of our glass rondelles. I'm going to thread all of those on, and then we're going to secure the end. Okay. This is another one of the things about the tying station that is really, really handy because you can add your beads ahead of time. You don't have to stop what you're doing and add a bead and then get back to your knotting. All of this is going to be ready to go. So all you have to worry about is just creating all of the knots. Okay, so I have all of my beads and they can slip and slide up and down the bead stringing wire. So that's going to make it really easy for me to scoot one up when I'm ready to knot around it. On the bottom, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm just going to loosen the acrylic plate. I'm not going to take it all the way off. And I'm going to slide my bead stringing wire in between the 2 acrylic plates and tighten it down. Okay. So now I'm ready to get started and my beads are already in place. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start the knotting process. And this part is really the meat and potatoes, if you will, of this entire project. So once you get this knotting part down, you're going to be good to go. All right, so it's a 6-foot piece of the bead string wire. Find the 2 ends. Okay, so you need to find the ends and then find the middle of your 6-foot strand. Okay, When you find the middle of that, you want to slide it underneath the piece of bead stringing wire that is attached to your tying station, okay? And now you've got 1/2 of your 6-foot piece on one side and 1/2 on the other side. And that's exactly what you want. You want to be sure that you're pretty close to the middle of that long piece, okay? Now I'm going to lower you down just a little bit so that we can really look at the knots here. Okay, so let me just lower you down just a bit. Now you're not going to be able to see the entire tying station, but you can focus on just where we're working. Okay, so to get started, we are going to be creating square knots, and a square knot happens in 2 steps. The first square knot is always the trickiest. It just feels a little bit awkward at first, but once you get the first knot down, you're pretty much good to go from there. So we want to work on both sides. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take our right side, okay, of the bead stringing wire, and we want to create a P shape with our bead stringing wire over the top of our core wire here. Okay, so part of this piece of bead stringing wire is underneath the P shape that we're making. Now it's going over the top. Okay. Now come in with your finger and kind of hold on to that. This is where this first knot is just kind of tricky because you do need to hold everything in place. Okay. Now we want to take the left-handed side. We also want to make a left-handed P shape over here. So it's going to be our backwards P shape. Okay, this one needs to go behind. So underneath our core wire and then up through that P shape on the right-handed side. Now I know that looked a little wonky at first. It's just that first knot. It'll be a lot easier to see after this point. Okay, and then you just want to pull. Okay, and you're going to pull that all the way down to create a very, very small knot. That is just the first step, okay, of that knot. The second step, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to start on the left. Our left-handed strand is going across the top of our center. Our right-handed strand is going to go over the top of that piece that's coming out this direction, behind everything, and up through that P shape on the left side. Okay, and pull. Now, if that was confusing, that's okay. Okay, you're going to get to see this knot several times because that's what the entire bracelet is going to be made up with. Now it becomes a little bit easier because now we're attached. Okay, so we want to create about 5 or 6 of these, and then we're going to add a bead to this. Okay, but I'm going to walk you through these knots. Okay, so square knot happens in 2 steps. So we're going to start from the beginning again. Okay, right-handed piece of bead stringing wire. We're making our P shape over our center core piece that's attached to the tying station. Okay, the left-handed piece, we want to make sure that it is crossing over the top of the right-handed piece that is now going this direction. Okay, so that's going over the top, but now it needs to go behind the center and up through the P shape on the right side. Pull the whole thing and then pull down. Okay, now we're going to repeat, but this time we're starting on the left. The left-handed strand is going over the top of the core. Okay. Our right-handed strand is also making a P shape, crossing over the top of the sky. Okay. Underneath and up through the P shape on the left side. And that's it. You've done your square knot. Okay. It has to be done in the 2 steps though. If you only do one side, you're going to end up with a spiral. And what we want is a flat square knot. So you have to do the right hand first and then the left hand. Right hand, left hand. That's the way we're going to alternate even when we slide a bead up into this. Okay. So we're just going to keep going. We've got 2 so far. We're going to do 3 more. So making the P shape, right-handed side over the top of the center. Okay. The left-handed piece, I want to be sure that it crosses over the top of this piece that we've moved over here. Okay. But now it needs to go behind, underneath the center piece, okay, and then up through and pull. Okay, and if you notice as you're going that your core piece gets a little loose, and it does because you're working up against it, you can always undo your wing nut here on the bottom and tighten it back down to get some more tension here. I just find that if there's a little bit of tension here, that it makes for an easier time making your knots. However, it will get loose. It's kind of slippery stuff. So if it's getting loose, you're not doing anything wrong. That's just kind of the name of the game. Okay. All right. So we did the right-handed side. Now we're doing the left-handed side. So we're making our P shape on the left. The right-handed cord is going across the top of that strand that's coming across this way. Okay. And then behind and up. And pull. Okay, and you gotta pull it tight. You're gonna see though, the knots are very, very small, but once you start to get a long row of these, it is really, really beautiful. If your first couple are not, you know, super tight, that's okay. That's okay. You're going to see that it'll tighten up as you go and really kind of work it all works out in the end. Just want to be sure that you're pulling tight. This 49 strand bead stringing wire and the 19 as well is really strong stuff. So you really can pull tight on it to get a good tight knot. Okay. All right. So we've got 3 knots. We need 2 more. So right-handed side, doing the P shape, across the top. Left-handed side is going back behind the core and up through that P shape and pull. Okay, that was the first step. Second step is just repeating, except on the opposite side. Left, P shape, over, back behind, and up through. Okay, and pull. That's 4. We're going to do 1 more. Right side, across, under, up through, and the left. P shape, over, behind, and up through. Okay, and pull. All right, so now we have 5 of our little knots, and we're ready to add a bead to this. So to do that, all we have to do is, we don't have to undo anything down here. I'm just tightening up just a little bit because it does get a little droopy, but I'm going to slide a bead all the way up, and I want that bead to sit right up against the last knot. Okay, you don't want there to be any space between that bead and the last knot that you made. Okay, you want everything to be as snug as you can get it. Now we're just going to create another knot around this. We're going to treat this just like there's not a bead there at all. So we're just going to proceed with the square knots, but we're actually going to do it around the bead itself. So same steps, right-handed P shape. Okay, our left cord is going across, up, through, and pull. Okay, so when you pull, now that bead stringing wire is sitting on either side of this bead, and because it's very similar in color, it kind of disappears and it looks almost as if that bead is kind of floating within the bracelet. Okay, so now I need to lock that in place. We need to do the left side, and you can see how it is starting to come undone. It's loosening up around my bead. That's okay. That's because the bead stringing wire has that beautiful nylon coating on it to keep all of those wires together. That makes it really slippery. But once we make the second half of this knot, we can pull everything down nice and tight. So don't panic if it moves away from your bead on you. Okay. So left-handed P shape, right hand is going over and then back behind and up through. Okay, and before I pull that all the way down, okay, I'm pulling pretty close. We've got what looks like sort of like a little snowman here. I'm going to tighten up on the first one and then pull the second one and see how it brings the entire wire down nice and close. Okay, so the knots are going to take care of it for you. You want to give it a little bit of help, but you don't have to stress over it. Okay, totally fine. All right, so now we've got one. We want to do 4 more. In between each one of our beads, we want to be sure that we get at least 5 of our knots. Okay, so we're just going to keep going. Okay, we've got 1 down. We need 4 more to go. So we're doing the right side and pull, and we're doing the left side. So that P shape on the left, right strand is going across, back behind, and up through, and pull. Okay, we're just going to keep going. Right, behind, and up through, and pull. Left, behind, up through, and pull. Okay, and you can always adjust as you're going. If you want that bead stringing wire to sit in a different place around that bead, you can make those kinds of adjustments. It's just bead stringing wire, and because it is slippery, you can really move it around and manipulate it the way that you want it to go. So don't let it have a mind of its own. You definitely can control it. Even though it's slippery, you still have plenty of control over that wire. Okay, so we're just going to keep going. Right, behind, and up through with our left, and pull. The left, behind, and up through with our right, and pull. Okay, we're going to do 1 more, and then we're going to add a bead. Before we add the next bead though, I do want to show you how to count your knots, so that if you had to get up and walk away from this and you came back, you would know exactly where you are in your work. Okay, so let me finish this one and pull. Okay, so now just to kind of show you how you keep up with your knots, I'm going to hold this up close for you guys to see here. Okay, I always count my knots on the right side, and since our knots are very small, it might be kind of hard to see. I'm going to point with my pliers here though, but you can see how it makes kind of a little arch or a little hump, right? The bead stringing material is going to make a little hump. Those are the knots that you're going to count. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That lets me know I have 5 full knots. And if my knots are completely full, they're finished, right? Then I have that last hump on the right-handed side. If I walked away from this in the middle of a square knot, so say I had done the right side, but I didn't do the left side yet, okay, but I had to get up. Something happened, I had to walk away, and then when I come back, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, but there's part of a knot, but there's not quite that hump right there yet. That lets me know that I only did the right-handed side, and I need to go ahead and do the left side to finish off a knot. Okay, so hopefully that'll help you, because I know that having it attached to something like the tying station makes it so much easier to get up and walk away. But the problem is that when we do that, sometimes we forget, particularly when we're working on something where there are 2 steps to the one hole, right? So it's good to be able to look at it and determine exactly where you are, so that you don't start and end up with doing 2 on the right side instead of 1 on the right and 1 on the left. So I hope that helped a little bit. Okay. All right. So I'm going to tighten up down here just a little bit, just like so. And now we're ready to slide another bead up. Okay. And we're going to continue on with our knots. And so to bead or to knot rather around the bead, we just want to treat it like the bead doesn't even exist. So same steps, right? The left goes back behind and up through. And the left makes our P shape, and the right goes back behind and through. Okay. And again, we have kind of the snowman shape because when we've added a bead, the wire tends to move away. Before we pull everything down, pull that top knot, top half of your knot, pull it tight again, just so that it's not nearly as loose. And then when you pull down the second half of that knot, it's going to continue to do the hard part for you, and it brings it down nice and close up to the bead. Okay. You just want to give it a little extra help, but not much. Okay. So there's one. We've got 4 more before we add another bead. So I'm just going to keep going. Okay. And you will find that with a lot of the projects that I show you guys, in particular knotting projects, you really kind of find a rhythm with these, and you can work these up pretty quickly, which once you get the hang of it, not only do you have really beautiful results, but it is a piece that you can put together, and you can put together pretty quickly. If you are selling, you know, if you sell in a craft fair in a booth, or if you've got your own website, you need projects that you can use as what I like to call filler. And I don't mean that in like they're not any less special than any of your other pieces, but you want to be able to offer things to people that you can make in a variety of colors. So you can change this one up, right? You can change your bead stringing wire color. You can change your bead color, but it doesn't take a lot of materials, which isn't going to affect your bottom line. And you are able to make a lot of these up. So you can have your own little display of these guys, which will be reasonably priced. That's what's going to get people in. That's what's going to get people looking at what else you have, right? They come in and see something like, oh, I love this friendship bracelet. This reminds me of being a kid. You're tugging at the nostalgia heartstrings a little bit, which is always a good thing. You know, that definitely gets people in the spending kind of mood. But also you're offering them a reasonably priced item that didn't cost you a lot of time or materials to create. That gets them in there looking at your showstopper pieces. So maybe this is what you're known for, right? You've got these beautiful friendship bracelets in a wide variety of colors, but while they're shopping on those, they notice that you've got some really wonderful statement pieces that are priced a little bit higher, right? So that definitely, it all kind of works hand in hand to really kind of help you stay in the green or in the black, so to speak, with your business, right? But if you're not into that, right? If you don't sell your jewelry and it's just a hobby and it's just for fun, this is definitely one of those pieces that you can sit and make. You can make these for everybody that you know. You can give them as gifts. And, you know, they're just a fun, very nostalgic piece to have. So always kind of thinking about, you know, how much you're spending on materials, making sure that you're budgeting accordingly. And when you can buy beads that you've got more than one on a card, a project where you only use 10 beads, you've got plenty left to go, right? To use for other projects. Those are all things that are really going to help you moving forward with your jewelry business. All right, so there's 3 knots. I'm just kind of knotting and going along, okay? There's 3. We're going to do 2 more, and then we're going to slide up another bead. And I'm going to slow back down again so you can see these knots again. Just slow. Okay, there's 4. We're going to do 1 more, and then we'll slide up a bead. Okay, there's 5. And you can see at this point, now that we've added 3 beads to this, you can see just how pretty this is going to turn out. It is very similar to you know, friendship style bracelets that maybe you made before, but it's also very grown up in that we have this gorgeous metal going through here with that bead stringing wire. It just adds kind of a different texture and a different look to something. It really kind of dresses up something that normally you would do with maybe, you know, with cotton cord or embroidery floss or hemp. Using your bead stringing wire adds a whole different element to it. All right, so we're going to slide up another bead, okay? And we are going to knot around that bead. So same steps, right side, our P shape over the top of the core. The left strand is going to cross over the top of that guy, but then it goes behind the core and up through that P shape that we made on the right side and pull. Okay. And then left side, same steps. Our P shape is going across the center of the core. The right-handed strand needs to cross over it, but then go back behind everything else and up through, whoops, the P shape on the left. Okay. And then as I start to pull, we have that kind of snowman figure 8 shape. Give that top knot a little bit of a tug and then tighten down the second half of that knot and it'll bring everything nice and close. Okay. Same steps. So there's the right and the left and pull. You can also do this with alternating the sizes of your beads. You don't have to use just one size bead for this. You can mix it up with that card of beads that we started with. It had, I believe, 4 different sizes of beads. So you could do graduated beads with this as you were going. You could start on the ends with your smaller beads and your bigger beads be in the center and then work your way back down again. So you can change this up however you want to. Even just changing the color of the bead stringing wire or just the color of the beads is definitely going to make a huge change. But then playing around with the beads and the shapes of the beads is also going to give this an entirely different look. So again, just kind of going back to that thing with, you know, making sure that you've got some good core pieces for your business. They don't all have to be exactly the same, right? Just changing up those small things is going to make one design, you know, of 10 different ways if you wanted to, just by changing the beads and the colors and the shapes. All right, adding another bead. So we're just sliding one up, doing the right and up through with our left. We're doing the left and then up through with our right. Pull that down a bit before you pull it tight. Kind of tighten up on that one and tighten it all down. Okay. And we're just going to keep going. So we've got 5 beads on here. So we are right at the halfway mark. I'm going to speed this up just a little bit because I feel like you guys have seen the knot several times now. And I want to be able to show you before you leave today. I definitely want you to see how we finish this, because that probably is the hardest part for everybody to kind of come up with if you were, you know, doing this on your own. So it's definitely some valuable things to stick around for at the end, just to figure out how to finish this off and make it look professional on the ends. Okay. So I'm just continuing with the knotting. Okay, so this is on the left and pull the right and pull. Okay, now we're ready to add another bead. And you can see as we're going along, right, as we are making our way, we're right at 4 inches. So I know so far You know, I'm at 4 inches. If I want to make a 7.5 inch bracelet, I probably want to stop down here when I get to the 7 so that I've got a full inch to add all of my hardware to. But it's just really handy that this ruler is here to keep up with it. So I don't have to grab for an extra tool. I don't have to even let go of what I'm doing. I can just glance over to the side to see, okay, this is where we're going. We're almost there, and really keep track of things. Okay. All right, before I pull down, I'm going to tighten up that top section of the knot and then pull. Okay, on the right, up through with the left, on the left, back behind and up through with the right, and pull. Once you master the square knot, you can actually do several different kinds of knots with your bead stringing wire. So if you wanted to do just half hitch knots on one side and make a spiral, your bead stringing wire will do that too. It's going to behave very similarly to the way any of your other stringing materials that you're going to knot with will. You just kind of have to, you know, keep in mind it's a little bit more temperamental because it is a little slippery, but for the most part, most knots that you can create with hemp or with other, you know, materials, you can do with your 19 and 49 strand bead stringing wire. I just find that the 7 is just too temperamental. I know it can be done. So, you know, just know ahead of time that if the 7 strand is what you're going to be using, just know that you're probably going to get frustrated with it, but it can be done. Absolutely can be done. It just may take you a little bit longer. You may use a couple of sentence enhancers, you know. Okay. All right. So we've only got 3 more beads to go. So we're pretty close to the end here. I know this is very repetitive, but doesn't hurt to see this knot many, many times, particularly if you are a beginner and you've not ever done anything with knotting before. It doesn't hurt to see this knot several times, but it also shows you that you do work up a rhythm and it can be done pretty quickly. Okay, just want to keep up with your count, counting the little humps, you know, the little arches on your right side to keep up with how many knots you've done. I try to keep it an even 5 in between, but that is also something else that you can change with your design. If you want your beads closer together, you do less knots in between them. If you want them further apart, you definitely can, you know, do more knots. So you can make all of those adjustments and make it really unique to you. Okay, so we added a bead and we're going to tighten that bead down. Okay, and then just keep going. Getting very close to the end here. And one thing that is worth mentioning, if you've never used the tying station before, is that the closer you get down here to the bottom, you're working in a smaller area, right? Your work area is getting smaller and smaller as you go. Just kind of keep that in mind. Even though you do have the entire length of the of the tying station, you still are kind of working, and it gets kind of cramped when you get down here to the end. It's not harder. It's just, I feel like it goes a little bit slower because you're really trying to, you know, watch out for your fingers and for the bottom of the tying station. So just keep that in mind as well. Not a frustration, just something to know in advance. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we're ready to add another bead. This is the second to last bead for our bracelet. So there's the right-handed side up through the loop, and our left-handed side using the right to come up. Okay, before I pull that one tight, tighten up the top, and then pull down, and then kind of adjust on either side. I really want that bead stringing wire to sit evenly, right? I don't want it to all be up to the top. So I try to make it as evenly spaced on the bead as possible. Okay. So there's 2. There's 3. There's 4. We need 1 more, and then we're going to add our very last bead, and we're going to finish off with 5 more knots, just so that it matches up here at the top where we started with 5 knots. We want to finish with 5 knots. Okay, so pull, and we're going to slide our bead up. We're going to knot around it just like we've been doing. Okay. All right, 4 more knots to go, and then I will show you how to finish this off. And since we're using bead stringing wire, we can use all of the same kinds of hardware that we would if we had done just a straight string project. The only difference is that on one end, we have 3 ends to deal with. So I'm going to show you how to bring it down to one single strand. Remember, up at the top, we only have 1 single strand, but down here on this end, we've got a little bit more bead stringing wire that we need to finish off. So I'll show you how to do that. All right, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We've got 5 on that end. So we have knotted up the entire bracelet, and it didn't take us that long, right? Didn't take us very long at all. I definitely did a lot of talking in between here just to, you know, keep you going and show you, give you the information that you needed. But if you were doing this without all of the additional instruction, you definitely could work this up in probably 30 minutes, maybe 40 minutes. It definitely doesn't take long once you get that first knot going. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're going to take those off of the tying station. To do that, I'm just going to release the ends. Okay, and I have a little excess down here. I'm going to trim just a little bit of this off and release it from the bottom here. All right, so we can set the tying station to the side because we don't need it. But as you can see, we have 3 strands of bead stringing wire down here on this end. We only have 1 up here on the top where we started. So let's start with this guy. Okay, you're going to need your standard crimper tool for this. Okay, and your wire guardian and a crimp. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take a crimp tube, and I'm going to slide that on to the end of the bead stringing wire. Whoops. And then I'm going to take the tail end of this and I'm going to thread it through my wire guardian. Okay. Okay. And then going back down through the wire guardian, take the tail back through our crimp tube, and then I want to pull everything down right up next to the first knots that we made. Okay. Give yourself just a tiny little bit of wiggle room because we are going to cover this with a crimp cover, and the crimp cover does take up a little bit of room. So give yourself a little tiny bit of room, but you don't want there to be a huge gap of space here. Okay. You want to make sure that your bead stringing wire is not crossing within the crimp tube. You want those wires to be running next to each other, side to side, not crisscrossing. Okay. And then you want to come in with your crimper tool. You want to use that back notch. That's the one that looks like macaroni. Okay. Place your crimp into the back notch and give it a squeeze. And then you want to take that crimp and place it in the front notch and give it a squeeze. I was just going to tidy up the crimp, keep it nice and compact. Come in with your cutter tool and trim off your wire. Okay. Now we're going to cover this. You don't have to cover this. In fact, it is, it's such a tiny little crimp that it doesn't have to be covered with a crimp cover, but crimp covers just kind of act as beads. So why not, right? So I'm going to use one of the crimp covers here. You can pick any of them that you want to. I'm kind of partial to the sparkly ones, have that kind of sparkly texture to them. So I'm going to place this guy. You can see he's like a little Pac-Man shape. I'm going to place him over the crimp. Okay. And you can either use your chain nose pliers for this. You can use your crimper tool for this. If you've got a mighty crimper tool, you can use it as well. You just want to be careful that you don't mark up that crimp tube, right? So if you're going to use your pliers, you just want to squeeze gently. Notice I'm going really slow here because I don't want to add extra marks to our crimp cover. Okay. And if you don't get it completely closed, you can always use that front notch of your crimper tool that is already shaped like a circle to really kind of pinch it into more of a circular shape. Okay. I try to get mine as closed as possible. They don't close completely. You definitely don't want to mash it flat though. Okay, so when you get that attached, now it just looks like a bead, right? And everything is in there nice and secure. And on this end, we can go ahead in our variety findings and we'll go ahead and attach the clasp to this end since we're already here. So I'm going to take a jump ring using 2 pairs of pliers, holding the jump ring so that the opening is away from me. I'm going to hold the left pliers still and the right pliers, I'm just going to give it a little twist to walk that open. I'm going to thread that on to the wire guardian. And before I close it, I'm going to thread on my clasp. And then I'm going to close that back. And this end is finished. Okay. So that's the easy end. Right? This one's ready to go. Has all of the regular hardware that a stringing piece of jewelry would have, right? But now we need to come down here to the other end and kind of figure out what we're going to do about this, because we need to make our way to just one again, right? We need to take all 3 of these strands and turn them into a single strand. So there's a couple of ways that you can do this. Honestly, it's not the prettiest thing in the world, but you're going to cover it. Again, that's why these crimps are super, super important, because they're really going to help to cover up all of your ugly here. Okay. Just take my word for it. So I'm going to thread on 1 crimp tube to that middle strand. Okay. Then I'm going to thread the ends of the other strands through that as well. Okay. So we're actually threading all 3 strands through 1 crimp tube. Okay. We're going to bring all of that pull the ends and bring that crimp tube down. Now, when you go to crimp this crimp tube, it's really impossible to make sure that your wires are not crisscrossing on the inside and all of that, which you normally would do, right? That's super important. But we have to make an exception here because we have to get this down to just one strand of bead stringing wire. So you do the best that you can to make sure that those strands are separated. Hold it all down with your thumb, okay? And if you've got to do this with the opposite hand, you can. Bring it all down. Hold your thumb on there because that's going to want to pop out of place, right? Come in with your crimper tool and crimp it just like you would if it were your single strand running back and forth through there, okay? And then front notch it just to close it down, okay? Now we can trim off 2 of those, right? Because we only need the one in the middle. And I know that everything in there is nice and secure, so I can safely come in and trim off. So I'm going to trim off one on one side, one on the other, and I'm just going to leave that middle strand. Okay. And we're just going to proceed like normal with it. Sorry, can't seem to get my wire cut. There we go. Okay. We're going to proceed like normal with it, but first let's cover this, shall we? Let's put a crimp cover over it. That's going to kind of tidy it all up. Like I said, kind of hide the mess there. I do have some little short ends of the bead stringing wire kind of sticking out. Just be sure that you don't accidentally cut your long strand. Okay. You've got to have that guy. All right. So same things. I'm going to come in with my pliers, start working on closing that crimp cover down. Just kind of, I rotate the pliers along the outside of it just so that I'm not squeezing in one single spot the entire time. Right. And then if you need to come in with your rounded crimping pliers, you can do that as well. Uh-oh, this one's a little loose. You slide that back in there. Oh no. There we go. Okay. So now I'm ready to finish off the end just like we would if it were the other end, right? We just proceed like normal. So another crimp, okay, and our wire guardian to finish this off. Okay, so going through the wire guardian, take that crimp tube down. We're going to thread back through the crimp tube and then pull it up next to the crimp cover that we just added. Okay, so on this end, you're going to have 2 crimp covers right next to each other. It might be bothersome to some, but it really doesn't make much of a difference to me because it's such a small part of the bracelet. Nobody is really going to notice that there's only 1 on one side and 2 on the other side. Okay, so again, I'm going to come in with my cutter tool, trim that off, and then I'm going to cover this. Or you can leave it, right? If you don't want there to be more than 1 crimp cover, you can very easily just leave it just like it is. You're going to have that crimp exposed, but at least your ends are going to match, right? But if it doesn't matter and you're okay with it, go ahead and add another one. There's no reason not to. They're going to sit right next to each other. It's just going to look like part of the design. And then we'll just add our jump ring to this and our bracelet will be finished. Okay, there are our 2 crimps covered up nicely. And all I need is just 1 more jump ring. Open my jump ring and close it back. And we are done. Oh no, or we would be, except that I didn't crimp that one very tightly on that end, but that's okay because I have the sample here. So I didn't get my crimp nice and tight, but that's all right. Fortunately, I do have this one that's finished. So you can see on the ends, you've got your crimp covers and your hardware, just like you would finish any other piece of jewelry, right? Okay, so again, it's taking that macrame style, but you have really taken this to another place because you have used your gorgeous bead stringing wire that has that metallic shine to it. You finished it with hardware instead of the knotting techniques and the braiding techniques that happen when you create these same styles with soft materials like your hemp and with your embroidery flosses and things like that. So this really makes it an actual piece of jewelry, whereas, you know, your summer friendship bracelets, it's still a piece of jewelry, but it just doesn't have that hardware on the end. So I really think that this kind of takes this to, you know, takes this to a little bit higher level on the jewelry scale, just in my opinion. All right, guys. So I'm going to turn you around and we'll say our goodbyes. I just want to thank you guys so much for joining me this Wednesday. I hope you guys have enjoyed our project. I'll hold it up for you so you can see that real sparkle. It looks a lot different when you hold it up versus when it is down on the blue mat. You can really see all of that shine and sparkle that is there. Really definitely a grown-up piece of jewelry for sure. All right, thank you guys so much for joining me this afternoon. It has been fun. I hope that I have inspired you. I see some of you holding up your bracelets. I love it. Thank you so much for working along with me today. Have a wonderful afternoon, and I will see you guys with a new project very, very soon. Bye, guys.